"Congratulations, you're fired." The words hung in the conference room like smoke. I looked at Marcus Kingston, the Chief Executive Officer of Quantum Digital Solutions, then at the 10 board members seated around the mahogany table. Nobody met my eyes. "My name is Nathan Rodriguez. I'm 47 years old, and until 3 minutes ago, I was the Chief Technology Officer of the company I helped build from the ground up. 12 years of my life poured into servers, code, and late nights debugging systems that kept this place running." Marcus had that smug smile he wore when he thought he was being clever. The same expression he had when he took credit for my distributed authentication system last year, or when he announced the hiring of Connor Walsh without telling me they wanted him to learn my job. "I suggest you explain to the investors why the Meridian Industries presentation can't proceed in 2 hours," I said, placing my security badge and laptop on the table. The room went quiet. Marcus' smile faltered for half a second before returning full force. "What are you talking about?" he asked. I stood up, straightening my tie. "The code signing certificates. Every software deployment requires my digital signature authorization." "That's me, or rather that was me." Board member Victoria Sterling shifted in her seat. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means," I continued, checking my watch, "that in approximately 90 minutes, you're supposed to demonstrate our enterprise security platform to Meridian Industries. A $15 million contract. Without my signing certificates, you can't deploy a single line of code. The demo software doesn't exist without my authorization." Marcus' face had gone pale. "You're bluffing." I walked toward the door, turning back one last time. "The hardware security modules are biometric locked to my personal authentication. Even if Connor has been copying my code for months, he can't sign it for deployment. Good luck explaining to Meridian why your security software can't pass basic enterprise security protocols." The panic started when I reached the elevator. I could hear shouting through the conference room doors. Someone was already on the phone with the Information Technology Department. Another voice was calling the legal department. Marcus was yelling something about lawsuits and criminal charges. The elevator doors closed, and I descended to the parking garage. My truck was parked in the same spot I'd used for 12 years, the same spot Marcus had tried to reassign to Connor last month, claiming senior staff needed better parking privileges. I sat behind the wheel and waited. My phone started ringing. I built Quantum Digital Solutions from nothing, started in Marcus' garage back in 2012, writing code for small businesses that needed secure data management. Marcus handled sales, I handled everything else. We were partners then. Or so I thought. The first crack appeared 3 years ago when we landed the municipal contract with Aurora. I designed the entire traffic management system, spent 8 months of 16-hour days making sure every encryption protocol, every backup system, every security layer worked perfectly. When the mayor held the press conference, Marcus stood at the podium alone, taking credit for his team's innovative solution. I should have said something then, should have walked away when he started calling my innovations our vision, and my code company property. That I believed in what we were building, believed that good work would speak for itself. My wife, Carmen, saw it before I did. She'd watch me come home frustrated, talking about meetings where Marcus shot down my suggestions only to present them as his own the following week. She'd listened to me complain about how he was hiring his friends for positions they weren't qualified for, how he was making promises to clients that our systems couldn't deliver. "He's using you," she told me 6 months ago over dinner, "and when he's done, he'll throw you away like yesterday's newspaper." I defended him, said he was just under pressure from the board, that the company was growing too fast, that things would settle down once we got through the busy season. The warning signs were everywhere. Marcus started excluding me from board meetings, claiming they were high-level strategy sessions that didn't require technical input. He hired Connor Walsh, fresh out of college, supposedly to help with my workload. Connor spent most of his time asking questions about protocols I'd carefully documented, learning systems I'd built. 2 weeks ago, I caught Connor trying to access my secure development folders. When I confronted him, he claimed Marcus had authorized it for backup purposes. When I asked Marcus about it, he gave me some story about preparing for an information technology audit. Last week, Marcus started asking specific questions about my code signing certificates, said the board was concerned about security protocols, wanted to ensure multiple people could authorize critical functions. I told him I'd think about it. I should have known then what was coming. Should have seen that Connor wasn't there to help me, but to replace me. Should have realized that every system I'd built, every piece of code I'd written was being cataloged and prepared for my departure. But I trusted him, after 12 years of partnership. I still believed Marcus Kingston was my friend. The call I'd been waiting for came exactly on schedule. Marcus' name flashed on my phone screen. "Nathan, we need to talk." "No, we don't." "Listen, maybe I was hasty in there. The board's been putting pressure on me. demanding changes, talking about bringing in outside consultants. I was trying to protect you, protect me. The same lie he'd been telling himself for months, the same excuse he used when he took credit for my work, when he hired Connor behind my back, when he started cutting me out of decisions about systems I'd designed. The Meridian presentation starts in 75 minutes, Marcus. Okay, look, what do you want? We can work something out. Stock options, a consulting contract, a severance package. I almost laughed. 3 minutes ago, he'd fired me in front of the board like I was some entry-level employee caught stealing office supplies. Now you wanted to negotiate. I want you to understand something, I said. For 12 years, I've worked nights and weekends building systems that made you rich. I've covered for your mistakes, fixed problems you created, and watched you take credit for work I did with my own hands. Nathan, I'm not finished. You brought Connor in to learn my job so you could fire me. You've been planning this for months, maybe longer. The only thing you didn't plan for was this. Through the concrete walls of the parking garage, I could hear car doors slamming. People running. Someone was probably racing to the server room, thinking they could manually override the deployment restrictions. They couldn't. I'd learned years ago to build redundancies into redundancies, to protect the company's data even from the company itself. Every critical system required my personal hardware security modules, biometric authentication that couldn't be faked or transferred. What do you want? Marcus asked again, and I could hear the desperation creeping into his voice. I want you to remember this moment. I said, I want you to remember that for 12 years I was loyal to you. I believed in this company, believed in what we were building together, and you threw it away because you were afraid of looking weak in front of the board. The Meridian presentation starts in 65 minutes. I continued, $15 million without the deployment certificates, you've got nothing to show them. Without the signed software, you don't even have a functioning demonstration. I could hear voices in the background, people shouting instructions, keyboards clicking frantically. How do I fix this? Marcus asked. You don't, I said, and hung up. I started my truck and drove toward the exit. In 70 minutes, Marcus Kingston would have to explain to Meridian Industries why Quantum Digital Solutions couldn't demonstrate their own security software. And for the first time in 12 years, he'd have to solve a problem without me. The presentation failure lasted exactly 4 hours and 37 minutes. I knew because I was sitting in Murphy's Cafe on 16th Street, drinking coffee and watching the news coverage on the television mounted above the counter. Technical difficulties plague local software company, ran across the bottom of the screen while a reporter stood outside the Quantum building, interviewing confused employees who'd been sent home early. My phone rang constantly. Marcus called 19 times. Connor called 12. Victoria Sterling from the board called twice. I let them all go to voicemail. At 3:15 p.m., I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Rodriguez, this is David Park from Harrison Associates. I represent Quantum Digital Solutions. We need to discuss your actions today. A lawyer. Marcus was already building a legal case. I haven't done anything illegal, I said. Sabotage is a criminal offense, Mr. Rodriguez. Intentionally disrupting business operations, causing financial harm to the company. Withholding critical business assets. The district attorney might be very interested in your activities. I almost smiled. They thought they could intimidate me with legal threats, the same way Marcus had been intimidating me with job security threats for months. I implemented security protocols designed to protect company data, I said. The system worked exactly as intended. If Quantum Digital Solutions no longer employs qualified personnel to operate their technology, that's not my problem. You deliberately created a situation where you were the only person who could authorize deployments. I created a situation where the Chief Technology Officer had to authorize system deployments. I was the Chief Technology Officer until approximately 2:30 p.m. today. The lawyer was quiet for a moment. Mr. Rodriguez, I think you're underestimating the seriousness of your situation. The Meridian contract was lost due to your actions, $15 million in revenue. Multiple other clients are experiencing service disruptions. The damages could reach into the hundreds of millions. Marcus must have fed him inflated numbers. Hoping to scare me into compliance, the contract was lost because Marcus Kingston fired his Chief Technology Officer 90 minutes before a critical presentation. I said, poor management decisions aren't my responsibility. We have documentation showing you created unauthorized access restrictions, implemented security protocols without board approval, and deliberately withheld information necessary for business operations. Now I understood. They weren't just threatening me with criminal charges, they were building a civil case, claiming I'd sabotaged the company. Marcus was going to sue me for damages, try to take everything I owned, destroy me financially so I could never compete with him. Document this. I said. Any legal action taken against me will result in full disclosure of all Quantum Digital Solutions security vulnerabilities to the public. Every backdoor, every unpatched system, every shortcut Marcus approved against my recommendations. Let's see how many clients want to work with a company whose former chief technology officer testifies that their systems are fundamentally insecure. The line went quiet. You're threatening to reveal proprietary information. I'm promising to tell the truth about the company's technical capabilities under oath, if necessary. I hung up and ordered another cup of coffee. 20 minutes later, Marcus called again. Nathan, we need to meet face to face. No lawyers, no board members, just us. Why? Because this is getting out of hand. Because we used to be friends. Because maybe there's a way to fix this that works for everyone. I thought about it. Marcus was scared now, realizing that legal threats weren't going to make his problems disappear. He needed something from me, and he was finally ready to negotiate from a position of weakness. Murphy's Cafe on 16th Street. I said, 1 hour, I'll be there. But I already knew he wouldn't come alone. Marcus arrived 53 minutes later with Connor Walsh in tow. I watched them through the cafe window, Marcus pacing in the parking lot while Connor sat in the passenger seat of a black Audi I didn't recognize. Company car probably. Another perk Marcus had authorized for his new favorite employee. They sat across from me in a corner booth. Marcus looking haggard, Connor avoiding eye contact. The kid was nervous, probably worried about what his role in today's events might cost him. Coffee? I asked. Marcus shook his head. Let's just get to business. What's it going to take to make this go away? Make what go away? Don't play games, Nathan. You know what I'm talking about. The legal threats, the system vulnerabilities, all of it. Name your price. I leaned back in the booth. You think this is about money? Everything's about money. That was Marcus Kingston in a nutshell. Everything reduced to dollars and cents, profit margins, and quarterly reports. He'd never understood that some people worked for reasons beyond their bank account balance. Tell me something, I said. How long have you been planning to fire me? Marcus glanced at Connor. Then back at me. It wasn't personal. How long? 8 months, maybe 10. The board wanted changes, wanted to bring in younger talent, reduce operational costs. Connor's salary is 60% of what we were paying you 10 months, while I was working overtime to prepare for the Meridian contract. Marcus was already planning my replacement. While I was training Connor thinking I was helping a colleague, he was studying my job so he could take it. Did you ever intend to keep me on as a consultant? I asked. Originally, yes. But then he started asking questions about access protocols. Making comments about documentation. The board felt you might become a security risk. A security risk because I wanted to protect the systems I'd built from unauthorized access, because I'd questioned some of Marcus' technical decisions in front of clients. Show him the contract, Marcus said to Connor. Connor pulled a folder from his jacket and slid it across the table. Inside was a consulting agreement offering me $75,000 to provide technical transition assistance for 90 days. $75,000? I said if for 12 years of institutional knowledge, it's a generous offer considering the circumstances. Marcus replied. I read through the contract, standard non-disclosure language, non-compete clauses, and a section requiring me to provide complete documentation and access credentials for all systems and protocols developed during my employment. They wanted me to hand over everything, every password, every security certificate, every protection measure I'd built to safeguard the company, and in exchange, they'd pay me what Marcus probably spent on business lunches in a month. There's one problem with this. I said, what's that? You assume I want to work with you. Marcus's face tightened. Nathan, be reasonable. You're unemployed. You're facing potential criminal charges, and your reputation in this industry is going to be destroyed when word gets out about today. This is your chance to walk away with something. My reputation, industrial sabotage isn't exactly a selling point for future employers. I smiled and closed the contract folder. Marcus, do you know who called me this morning? He looked confused. What do you mean? At 7:30 a.m., before I even got to the office, I received a phone call from Sarah Chen at Phoenix Technologies. She wanted to discuss a position as their new chief technology officer. Seems they've been watching my work for months, impressed with the security protocols I designed for municipal contracts. Connor's eyes widened. Marcus went pale. The job pays twice what you were paying me, I continued, plus stock options and a signing bonus. You're lying, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. I pulled out my phone and showed him the missed call log. 9 missed calls from Phoenix Technologies between 7:30 am and 2 p.m., all from Sarah Chen. She called back during your little board meeting, I said. Left a voicemail asking if I was interested in discussing opportunities. Funny thing is, she already knew I was leaving Quantum. Said she'd heard rumors that management changes were coming. Marcus' face went white. That's impossible, is it? Who's been handling the Meridian contract negotiations for the past 6 months? The truth hit him like a freight train. Victoria Sterling, the board member who'd been pushing hardest for operational changes, was also the former chief technology officer of Phoenix's main competitor. She'd been feeding information to Phoenix for months, helping them understand exactly what Quantum's capabilities were and who was responsible for them. Victoria set this up, Marcus whispered. She's been recruiting me since January, I confirmed. Discreet conversations at industry conferences, casual questions about my satisfaction with current management, subtle hints about better opportunities. I turned her down because I thought I owed you loyalty. Connor was staring at the table, probably realizing that his new job might not be as secure as he'd thought. If Phoenix poached Quantum's key technical personnel, they could undercut every contract bid and steal the entire client base. But today changed my mind. I continued, when you fired me in front of the board, you made it clear that 12 years of partnership meant nothing. So I called Sarah Chin back. Marcus grabbed his phone. I need to call Victoria, need to find out what she's planning. Too late for that. What do you mean? I checked my watch. At 5 p.m. today, Phoenix Technologies is announcing the acquisition of Nathan Rodriguez's intellectual property portfolio. They've purchased the exclusive licensing rights to my distributed authentication system, my real-time encryption protocols, and my enterprise integration framework. That's impossible. We own those systems. You own the code. I own the patents. The silence stretched across the table like a chasm. Marcus's mouth opened and closed without sound. Connor looked like he might be sick. The patents Marcus finally managed, filed in my name over the past 5 years. Every major system upgrade, every security protocol, every piece of innovative code. My lawyer assured me that as the actual inventor, I retained intellectual property rights regardless of employment agreements. It was true. My attorney had advised me years ago to file patents on my major innovations, partly for protection and partly for pride. I'd never imagined I'd need them as leverage against my own company. The distributed authentication system alone is worth $8 million in licensing fees. I continued, real-time encryption protocols are worth another $7 million. Enterprise integration framework, automated compliance monitoring, multi-tenant security architecture. Phoenix estimates the total portfolio value at $28 million. More than the contract Marcus had lost by firing me. More than Quantum's annual revenue. Enough to put his company out of business if a competitor controlled the technology. You can't do this, Marcus said. I already did. Signed the licensing agreement an hour ago. Phoenix gets exclusive rights to my patents for 5 years. In exchange, I get a toe position, equity in their company, and 20% of all licensing revenue. Marcus was staring at me like I'd grown a second head, the same expression he'd worn earlier when I told him about the deployment certificates. The look of a man realizing he'd miscalculated badly. What happens to Quantum? Connor asked quietly. That depends on Marcus, I said. Phoenix is willing to negotiate a licensing agreement that would let you continue using my patents for a fee. How much? 55% of gross revenue. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. The bankruptcy filing came 6 weeks later. I was sitting in my new office at Phoenix Technologies, reviewing system architecture plans for a municipal contract in Phoenix when my assistant brought me the news. Quantum Digital Solutions had filed for Chapter 11 protection, citing unsustainable operational costs and loss of key intellectual property rights. Marcus had tried to fight it. He'd hired 3 different law firms, challenged my patent claims, and even attempted to have me arrested for corporate espionage. Nothing stuck. The patents were legitimate. The licensing agreement was ironclad, and my departure from Quantum had been entirely his choice. He's also tried to operate without my systems. For 2 weeks, Connor and a team of contractors attempted to rebuild the infrastructure from scratch, creating new code to replace the patented algorithms. The results were disastrous. Client databases crashed, security protocols failed, and the traffic management system for Aurora went down for 36 hours, causing chaos throughout the city. The lawsuits followed quickly. Aurora sued for breach of contract. 3 other municipal clients terminated their agreements. Phoenix Technologies, now armed with my proven systems, swept in to capture every abandoned contract. Victoria Sterling resigned from the Quantum board 2 days before the bankruptcy filing. She's already accepted a consulting position with Phoenix, helping to integrate acquired assets and transition former Quantum clients to new systems. Connor Walsh lasted 3 months before Marcus had to let him go. The kid wasn't qualified for the position he'd been hired to fill. And without my systems to maintain, there wasn't enough technical work to justify his salary. He ended up taking a job with a small startup in Colorado Springs. making half what Marcus had promised him. The final blow came when the bankruptcy court approved the asset sale. Phoenix purchased Quantum's client list, office equipment, and remaining intellectual property for less than Marcus owed in legal fees. The company that had taken 12 years to build was liquidated in a single afternoon. I didn't attend the auction. Instead, I spent that Thursday morning working with my new team on a security upgrade for the Denver International Airport. Real work, technical challenges that mattered, projects that would be credited to the people who actually designed them. Carmen met me for lunch at a restaurant near the Phoenix offices. She'd been supportive through the entire transition, never questioning my decisions, never suggesting I should have handled things differently. Any regrets? She asked over soup and sandwiches. I thought about it. Marcus Kingston had destroyed our partnership, betrayed 12 years of trust, and tried to steal credit for my life's work. But his actions had also freed me from a situation that was slowly destroying my passion for the work I loved. None, I said as she smiled. Good, because Sarah Chen called this morning. She wants to discuss expanding your team at Phoenix. At Phoenix, my ideas were valued, my contributions were recognized, and my name appeared on every patent application. The signing bonus had paid off our mortgage. The stock options would fund our retirement. The salary was enough to let Carmen pursue her photography full-time, something she'd dreamed about for years. Marcus Kingston, on the other hand, was working as a regional sales manager for a software company in Kansas City. I'd heard through industry contacts that he was making about 30% of his former salary, living in a small apartment, and telling anyone who would listen that his former business partner had stolen his company. Connor Walsh had found work debugging legacy systems for a company that specialized in maintaining old software. His starting salary was less than what he's made as an intern at Quantum. Victoria Sterling was making more money as a consultant than she'd ever made as a board member, helping other companies navigate acquisition strategies and intellectual property transfers. The truth was simple. Actions have consequences, and eventually everyone pays for their choices. Sometimes it just takes longer than you'd expect. 6 months after joining Phoenix, I received an industry award for innovation in enterprise security. The ceremony was held at the Denver Convention Center, with over 500 technology professionals in attendance. When they called my name, I walked to the podium knowing that this time, the recognition was mine alone. In the audience, I could see my new team from Phoenix, applauding genuinely. Sarah Chen smiled and nodded from the front row. Carmen beamed with pride from her seat in the family section. As I accepted the award, I thought about Marcus Kingston, probably watching from his apartment in Kansas City, finally understanding what he'd thrown away when he chose ego over partnership. But I didn't mention him in my speech. Some people don't deserve that kind of recognition, even as cautionary tales. Instead, I talked about the importance of protecting intellectual property, valuing experienced technical leadership, and building companies based on trust and mutual respect. The kind of company Phoenix Technologies was becoming. The kind of company Quantum Digital Solutions could have been. The applause was genuine. The recognition was earned. And for the first time in years, I was working for people who understood that technical innovation requires both talent and trust. Marcus Kingston had taught me an important lesson. Sometimes the best way to win is simply to stop playing someone else's game and start playing your own. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe to check out more stories on my channel.